San Francisco's defense versus Kansas City's offense. Okay, so I gave you the Patriot game plan at the start for San Francisco's offense. The Patriot game plan for Kansas City is pass. Pass even more. This is, I would say, if I had to relate it to a Super Bowl 49. Super Bowl 49 for the Chiefs. That is New England versus Seattle. Seattle, San Francisco, very similar defenses, very similar strengths, even similar players, and the same scheme, pretty much. I honestly think Kansas City, if they didn't, they should have actually looked at those Super Bowls, New England versus Seattle and New England versus Atlanta, because both of those defenses ran very similar schemes, and New England is better than anybody at attacking those schemes. So I hope Kansas City and Andy Reid looked at those games. But yeah, I think Kansas City run, to be honest, at times. Run on the odd second and short, but pass even more. Because even though San Francisco's strength has been defending the pass, I think that's honestly where they're more susceptible, especially in this game with these matchups. So I do think some things that Kansas City can use to their advantage is tempo, underneath passing, motion, and using their speed to scare San Francisco's corners. And what I mean by that is I think you need to attack Sherman, you need to attack Mosley, you need to attack, who's the other guy that I'm missing? Quan Williams, with the speed of your receivers. So even if you're not always attacking them over the top, you need to make them fear you. Because I don't think San Francisco, they know they can't run with you. So that being said, I think a lot of what Kansas City will do is threat the deep pass, but a lot of it will be, okay, threat the deep pass, come back. Threat the deep pass, out route. Threat the deep pass, curl. It's going to be a lot of deep out route, deep comeback. Things that scare a corner to backpedal and play over the top, but quickly turn back to the football. Because when you're looking at the scheme of the cover 3 match, more susceptible than anything is to play with the curl flat defender, which the curl flat defender is the guy that plays where the curl would be, so plays like the sticks outside over the top, or outside flat. So flat is right immediately at the line of scrimmage, and then up deep down the sidelines. So what you want to do is flood that and attack that area, which is what New England was very good at. They're also very good at kind of messing with the rules of the defense, which Andy Reid has also been very effective at doing this, to get one-on-one advantages. Because I don't know if some of you know this, because everybody just seems like cover 3 match is like pure zone. It's actually not. It's a man zone. So there's matching rules where guys will become one-on-one. So if Kansas City can figure out some ways, and obviously San Francisco knows mostly all the ways that can beat this defense, which is why this defense is very good. Because when you have a team that's very good at this defense, they know all the ways that you can beat it, and they can adjust to it. Maybe Kansas City will catch them off guard 1 or 2 plays, but once they see it once or twice, they can take it away by doing different things. And I think Robert Saleh has done a good job of adjusting with this defense. And that's why when you just put really good athletes and really good players within this defense, it's going to be a really, really tough defense to beat. But I think if you can figure out a way for those matching zones to get one-on-one with one of these speedy receivers, and you're one-on-one, I think you're done. There's going to be plays where Kansas City has a couple of big plays in this game because of, if they're playing that type of defense more often than not, which they have all year, then Kansas City will be able to get after it in certain plays. Another key I think is interesting is, I got this from Warren Sharp, which he's a very smart football guy, analytics guy. In 3 receiver sets in the red zone, San Francisco ranked last, which I found interesting because Kansas City last at defending it. So Kansas City uses 3 receivers more often than any formation. So they like to have Hardman, they like to have Watkins and Hill all on the field. San Francisco actually isn't very good in the red zone because their receivers are based on speed, and when you're in the red zone, there's less space to burn people with speed, and they're not big. They're fast, they're quick, they're good in space. They're not good with limited space. So that's a really interesting matchup. Is San Francisco is not very good in the red zone defensively, and Kansas City is not very good in the red zone offensively. How Kansas City has scored in the playoffs is Mahomes scrambling and creating a play, and Travis Kelce, basically, or Damian Williams running. So how can and how efficient will Kansas City be with their 3 receiver sets for San Francisco? And I think that is going to be a big matchup as well. Now, looking at some of the other key stats and matchups, I think something that really stood out to me right away about this game was obviously the thing everybody is talking about, which is 49ers defensive line versus the Chiefs offensive line, but more on the point of getting after Mahomes or containing Mahomes. So I think the biggest matchup on a pure one-on-one matchup on this side of the ball is Bosa versus Fisher. So Eric Fisher is the left tackle. Nick Bosa plays right end most of the time. D Ford plays left end. I think D Ford will find it more difficult on his side because he plays Mitchell Schwartz, and Mitchell Schwartz is like the best Chiefs lineman, and he's also probably one of the best right tackles in the league, like top 3. And he doesn't allow a lot of pressure, which is why Mahomes is so good at scrambling to his right, because Mitchell Schwartz is the right tackle. But Bosa is playing Fisher, and Fisher ranked 35th by PFF, so below a starting tackle, really. And he is the weakness of the 2 tackles. And I do think if either of the ends has a lot of success, it will be Bosa. But what I think is most interesting about this matchup is the fact that the 49ers already play very wide. They play a wide 9 defensive front by nature. They're not going to be shifting to this throughout this game. They actually play that every game. So what the wide 9 basically is that you have your defensive ends. I wish I could draw this, but like you have your defensive ends lined up outside of the tackles. So it basically forces the quarterback to move up in the pocket, and it makes it very difficult for a quarterback to run outside of the pocket. So I think that's why this is such a good defense, a good rush versus Mahomes, because it keeps Mahomes inherently, without doing anything, without changing your defense, without putting in game plan specific things, it actually inherently keeps Mahomes inside the pocket, which even though Mahomes is great inside the pocket, he's not nearly as dangerous as he is when he's on the run. So that being said, I think the way that San Francisco will attack Mahomes is not through their ends. I think they're going to play their wide 9 formation, but those DNs are going to be more like contains, where they just wait and they don't get past Mahomes. They don't let him scramble around or backwards or left or right. They basically control the pocket, and they let Armstead and Buckner. This is why these 2 guys are going to be huge in this game. I think these 2 guys will determine whether Mahomes has a 350-yard game or a 200-yard game. Armstead and Buckner could be the difference in this game. If they have massive games with their interior rush versus Mahomes, then the 49ers will win, essentially. Because I think if 49ers come out correctly with Saleh and he says, Bosa and Ford, yes, you can get after the quarterback if you clearly win, but you're going to stay and contain Mahomes on those downs that we know they're going to pass, which is the majority of the time. You're not going to allow Mahomes to get outside the pocket. We're going to let Armstead and Buckner rush freely and get after Mahomes, but we're going to have our 4-man rush so that it's contained on the edge, rush from the interior, and win that way. So I think Bosa and Ford are more going to be there as cleanup guys more than actually winning their matchup and sacking Mahomes. It will be Armstead and Buckner that will be the guys creating the actual pressure, which will then force Mahomes to get sacked by Bosa or Ford, if that makes sense. And this also aligns with the weakness of the Chiefs' offensive line. So the weakness of the Chiefs' offensive line is their interior. As much as I said Fisher is the weakness, he's only the weakness of the tackles. Now, actually, Wiley and Reid have been 21st and 23rd, center and right guard, I believe, is Wiley, and left guard is Tardif. Tardif is the biggest weakness. He ranked 50th, the doctor, they call him, ranked 50th this year by PFF. So he is the guy that, if anybody gets whooped up front, it's going to be him. And you have two guys that are capable of 10-plus sacks a season with Buckner and Armstead, who've been great this year. That is going to be fascinating to watch. I'm very excited to see it. And I do think teams, when they've been able to get pressure on Mahomes, that's been the way they've been able to do it. Now, San Francisco, why this is so big is because San Francisco doesn't blitz. They blitz 29%, the 29th most, which is third least in the league. And they have the fourth least amount of blitzes this season. So they don't blitz at all, basically. They never blitz. I don't think they will blitz because I don't think that's the way to attack Mahomes. Because if you blitz, and I'm not going to say that's not the way to attack Mahomes, but I don't think that's necessarily smart if you don't have the corners to do so. And unless you're probably New England, you can't really blitz Kansas City because you don't have the speed at corner or you don't have the cover guys to be able to do that, right? So San Francisco, their corners are solid, but they're not necessarily fast. They're longer guys, they're physical guys, and I think that they're going to play more of their traditional set of defense. It's going to be slightly different, but we'll have to see how they go about it. I obviously don't know, but I'm just saying what I would do. Second in pressure rate and third in sack percentage is San Francisco this year. But Kansas City is fourth in adjusted sack rate. So their offensive line's been really good. And Mahomes is only allowing 3.3% sack rate on third down. So he's been amazing on third down at evading sacks and getting rid of the ball. And guys have been open on third down. And Reid does a great job on third down as well. He's so good, especially on third and short. Like, third and short for either of these teams, that's a win for the offense. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, unless it's a drop pass, Kansas City's going to convert or San Francisco's going to convert because these play callers are way too good on third and short. It's going to be an automatic first down. So every time you see third and 4 under, it's going to be a first down. I'm just telling you right now. Mahomes has had over 3 seconds to throw in the games versus Tennessee and Houston, which I think is why he's been so amazing. I mean, not only has he had time in the pocket, but he's had time outside the pocket. Because Tennessee and Houston both don't have good pass rushes, and they're both very slow. So they can't get Mahomes when he runs around. But San Francisco is the exact opposite. I mean, they're super fast, and they're also way better pass rushers. So I don't expect Mahomes to have an amazing game. And if he does, I think that would be historic. I think it would be amazing, like incredible for Mahomes to be to have one of the best performances in Super Bowl history. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think he can do enough to win the game. I don't think he's just going to rip the 49ers up to the point where it's like, oh my goodness, if that happens, I think it's because Reid comes up with some concepts and San Francisco doesn't adjust defensively and they just play the same defense that they've been playing all year and they just basically get beat schematically and there's guys wide open or Hill runs past Sherman or like things like that have to happen. I don't think it's going to be like, oh my God, San Francisco got torn apart. Because I think San Francisco's pass rush is too good. Like I think there's going to be downs where Kansas City has time and Mahomes has time to throw, but it's not going to be every down like versus Tennessee and Houston, where literally Tennessee and Houston got no pressure. And Mahomes was just balling because it was easy. But Kansas City's first on third down offense, San Francisco second on third down defense. This is a great matchup. And like I said, I think the advantage goes to both defenses on third down. But I think both offenses will have the clear advantage on early downs. Now, I also did some research with D Ford because I found out that really Kansas City, I wanted to check how San Francisco performed with D Ford and without D Ford, because D Ford came back for the playoffs. They've been a lot better in the playoffs as a pass rushing unit. So they played without Ford for 6 games, right? So They had 9 sacks in total over those 6 games without Dee Ford. And if you take away that game they played versus Green Bay on primetime Sunday Night Football, they had 5 sacks in that game. They only had 4 sacks in 5 games without Dee Ford. So when Dee Ford is in the lineup, this defensive line has been absolutely out of this world good, which he's going to be playing. Because not only Dee Ford is a good player, but he just allows everybody else to be even better, right? And he also allows for another body in the rotation. So I also wanted to take that into account where San Francisco was trending downward at the end of the regular season, but once they got Dee Ford back, they were trending up. And their sacks were down at the end of the year, even though their sacks were like huge at the beginning of the year, and their sack rate was way up, way first in the league. But it went down to like third at the end because Dee Ford wasn't playing. So just know that San Francisco, those numbers at the end of the year don't really dictate what they are now. Like I said, I think that even though Sherman's been great this year, I think there are ways that Kansas City can attack him. And I think specifically just by attacking their corners. Like use your speed to attack these guys because they're not built to defend these type of receivers. They're not built to defend the speedy, short, shifty guys. They're built to defend the A.J. Greens or the DeAndre Hopkins types, right? Or even the Devontae Adams types, not necessarily the Tyreek Hills. Or the Mecole Hardmans, even. I think one player that's going to have a big game is Damian Williams. Because often in games like when I talked about New England versus Seattle, big player in that game was Shane Vereen. Or New England versus Atlanta. These cover 3 schemes tend to give up the underneath passes a lot. And I do think San Francisco will give up all the underneath passes that Kansas City wants, which I think that's how Kansas City's going to have to live. And I think, honestly, Kansas City's gotten better in that regard because teams started to just take away the deep passes that they run and the concepts that they like and the vertical concepts that they like. So they just gave away all the underneath things. So I think Damian Williams underneath is going to have a big game. And their underneath patterns Mahomes is going to have to live with that, and he's going to have to live with quick passes. I don't think you can sit back there and wait for the deep route to open up and then go after that. It might happen a couple times in this game, but not like you're not going to live with that. You're going to have to live with the 5-yard catch and work after the catch, 3-yard outs, underneath. And San Francisco will live with that, but Kansas City can live with that as well. Because like I said, Kansas City's first on offense on third down, and they're amazing on third and short because Andy Reid is incredible on that down with all he can do with his play calls. So even though San Francisco will force Kansas City to play that way, Kansas City will be fine playing that way, is what I'm trying to say. Now, one question I have about San Francisco is, are they going to just play this defense or are they going to switch it up? Because I think if teams have had success versus Kansas City, more so it has been, playing man. But that has kind of been proven false as of late. Because not every team is the New England Patriots in terms of their secondary. So, that was like a myth, I think. Because, like, the games that people were having success, Tyreek Hill wasn't there. And then the games where Tyreek Hill was there, they were playing the Patriots, which the Patriots have the best secondary in the league. So, cover 2 or cover 2 man, are they going to mix some of that in there? Because they don't usually play that a lot. But I do think that would be actually probably trick Mahomes. And I do think it's not like a complex defense, but I do feel like throwing that in there occasionally would be actually really smart for San Francisco to do. Just a little bit of man here and there, a little bit of cover 2, not necessarily, and maybe disguising it so it looks like the cover 3. I think that would be very smart, just to throw that out there. And I am sure they will do that. Now, I do think the number one thing that San Francisco needs to do is they need to play very physical with their corners. I do understand that you don't want to give up the big play, but I do think you need to give time to your pass rush to get to the quarterback. So that being said, I think if there is an advantage, like I said, the advantage for Kansas City is their speed, but the advantage for San Francisco is their size. It's very rare that a secondary has a size and physical advantage on a receiver group, but that's actually the case, right, in this game. So that being said, I think San Francisco needs to beat up Tyreek Hill as much as they can. They need to beat up Mecole Hardman as much as they can. They get called on flags, but I think they need to be aggressive, and I think they need to provide time for Buckner and Armstead and Bosa and Ford to get to the quarterback and press and get physical, get handsy, whatever it may be. I think they need to try that. Now, I went back and talking about this cover 3 match, Seattle scheme, whatever it is. I went back and looked at the record that Mahomes has over the course of his career versus these teams. He's 5-2. He lost one game in Seattle last year, and he lost one game to the Chargers last year. So he was undefeated this year. He played Jacksonville, and LA twice, and he won both those games. Now, but he actually had his worst games of the season versus the Chargers. In both of those games, he was under 200 yards, and in both of those games, he had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. So 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions total this year versus that scheme versus the Chargers. Now, Chargers have a lot of history with Kansas City, Andy Reid, and they understand them because they're a rival. So I'm sure that Saleh and Shanahan looked back at that and said, okay, we're going to take some of the things that they did and try and replicate that. I think also why this is good if you're a 49ers fan is that the Chargers defense is probably the closest to the 49ers in the fact that they have 2 really good edge rushers. They have Ingram and they have Bosa, and I think that that's also a big factor in playing Mahomes because you need that speed on the edge to be able to contain him. So that's interesting. But, like I said, I think Kansas City has the advantage in the red zone. I think Kansas City has the advantage with their receivers in the red zone. That is the weakness of San Francisco. They allowed 17 touchdowns to receivers this season. But San Francisco allowed the least yards per attempt on defense. They allowed the least 20-plus yard passing plays. And they allowed the second least amount of passing yards. They were also the best versus the tight end this year and the second best to the running back. So even though I brought up Damian Williams, they've been very good at tackling because they're very fast. And even though you can pass underneath, they're very good at going to the football and tackling when they need to. So I honestly think Kansas City needs their best players in this game need to be Watkins, most importantly, because I think they're going to try and take away Hill as much as they can. But I think it's going to be Watkins, Hardman, and Hill. Those 3 guys probably are going to be the biggest factor in the passing game and on offense, other than Mahomes, of course, for Kansas City. Then you have Williams and probably last Kelsey. I think Kelsey will have the least amount of impact in this game. We'll see, though. He might get a lot of catches, but I don't think they're going to be for a lot of yards. What else do we have here? Now, something interesting as well. San Francisco did allow the 3rd most yards per attempt to the quarterback position when running. And we know Mahomes has been scrambling a lot as of late. But I don't expect him to live off that in this game, as the 2 teams that recently played him played more man, Tennessee and Houston, which allows you to run as a quarterback because the coverage isn't staring at you. You know, they can't see you because they're covering their guy. So it allows quarterbacks to run. But also in that stat, I did consider that San Francisco played Baltimore. They played Seattle twice. They played Arizona twice. They played a lot of quarterbacks that ran. So obviously that number is going to be higher than teams that didn't play quarterbacks that run. Like if you played Tom Brady, it's not going to be 5 yards a carry. You know what I mean? But I do think that Mahomes, maybe a couple scrambles here and there, could be a big factor as well. But again, it's going to be difficult if San Francisco plays properly up front. So the rushing plan is the biggest deal for San Francisco's defense. So summing that up, as I did for the opposite side of the ball. Kansas City-wise, pass more, use tempo to wear down the defensive line. I didn't really bring that up, but use tempo early, go to the line quickly, make San Francisco communicate, use a lot of motion to get good matchups in the match zone, and use a lot and attack their corners with your receivers. The receivers need to play well, which I think they will. Use 3 receiver sets in the red zone, and avoid third and long, which most teams want to do regardless. But pass on early downs, pass short, and if you need to get in third down, get in third and short. For San Francisco's defense, I think you need to be a little different at times, Right? I think the biggest thing for them is the rush plan. The biggest thing for them is keeping Mahomes in the pocket, tackling Armstead and Buckner, and really playing what they play, but just having a couple wrinkles here and there. I don't think it's going to be overly complex for them. So that's basically the sum up on both sides of the ball.